tell of the. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't remember. Only Matthew and Luke tell of the birth of Jesus. All right? Only one incident from his childhood is mentioned in Luke chapter 2. So the gospel accounts don't tell a lot about Jesus' childhood, right? But mostly about his life as a grown individual. Why you think so though? Give me a feedback. Why you think not much is mentioned about him as a baby in terms of a child growing up, whether or not he used to play games, what he used to eat and stuff like that? So why you think, in your opinion, why you think they don't have much about the early childhood of Jesus' life? Luke records a little bit, but not only Luke records a little bit about his early life as a child. But why you think they don't have a lot about that? What do you think? Anybody?
I think that Jesus Christ, as a child, he was a special child,
Yeah.
The reason why they didn't record all of these things race Jesus played and all that. Of course, he probably played because he was a toddler and all that and growing up as a child. I mean, he spent time with his father, I believe, and his mother. Even though part of it, the gospel, he didn't really say anything. They just really like jump to when I can remember when he said that I should be about my father's business.
Father's business. Mm-hmm.
Age of 12 years old, I believe. So Jesus Christ, really and truly, I would say he was ahead of his time,
Right.
Yeah.
So for them to exclude his early child, why you think they didn't write about him so much in early life, brother Enrico? Otherwise, though, probably I would say it's not really necessary or relevant then. What he did as a child, because some people still argue today whether or not Jesus played with other children, what was his favorite sport, what he liked to eat. People make a big deal out of that, but the truth is, the gospel accounts really are designed to just place great importance on the ministry of Christ. Not what he ate, not he played, whether he play games or not. Fine, that's all good and well to know, but the main idea is his ministry. But you made a good answer, right? It focused mostly on final week, right? Focused mostly on final week in terms of the final portion of Christ's life. The final portion of Christ's life. Most of the gospel accounts tend to highlight the final aspects of his life. One second, brother. So yes, Sister Morris. I teach in a class, so you know. You're back home. So you got you? Okay. All right, no problem. I will come after this class then, yeah? Thanks. All right, sis. Yeah, man. Mm. Sorry about that, brother. So it focuses mostly on the ending of Christ's life. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all highlights the crucifixion, all highlights the mission of Christ, the fulfillment of his time here on earth. And that's good for anyone to know when they think about the gospel accounts collectively. All right, let's move on now. Some consider it to be a unique form of literature, right? Some believe so because when the first gospel was written, a new genre was created, some have said, right? That when the first gospel was written, a new genre was created. Others point to similarities between gospels and Hellenistic biographies. Now, with the Hellenistic biographies, they don't tell the whole story, just enough to glorify the hero and reveal the major characteristics. So, some have said that the gospel accounts are like Hellenistic biographies. In other words, they only writing to big up Jesus then. Put it that way. They only writing to put him on a pedestal. That's what some persons have said. But we know that is not the truth to say, well, they're just writing to big up Christ. But the truth is they want to see Christ in his ministry and certain things being fulfilled through the life of Christ. So it's to glorify a hero, as some would say. But it's to bring out the idea of Jesus' mission here on earth, and by extension, point us to our mission as Christians. Now, what are the functions of the gospel accounts? What is the purpose of them? 4 of them. How do they function really and truly when we think about it? Right? Now, the aim of it all 4, the aim of them all is to create and sustain faith. When you read about Jesus, when you read about his birth, his life, his death, burial, and resurrection, it strengthens our faith as Christians. Not only does it strengthen or create that faith, it should sustain our faith. That yes, Jesus is risen from the dead. That yes, Jesus hung on a cross for our sins. That yes, he lived a life that was blameless, sinless, and upright. So when we look at the gospel accounts, that is where we read of Jesus' ministry here on earth. So it creates faith in us. It helps to sustain our faith when we read it. Read for me John 20, 30, and 31. Somebody can read that for me, please. Anybody? John chapter 20, 30, and 31 on the slide. Let's have that ready. What does it say? When you find it, you can read it.
Oh, John chapter
All right,
30.
Yeah, John 20, 30, and 31.
Oh, John 20. All right, so it says, and truly Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have a life in his name.
All right, so see, many other things could have been written, but these are written so that we may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and in believing in him, we may have life. So the aim of the functions of the gospel is to create that belief in us and to sustain that faith whenever we have gained it in Jesus Christ and his mission on earth and our mission today. Right? We see that a lot more could be said. A larger body of information is out there, but whatever is written is sufficient for us today. We don't need to go and dig up for any additional information to kind of make the Bible look good. What is written is for us. Yes, we need to do our research, but the truth is we don't need to. All right. Oh. All right. I see that picture, my brother. You can. All right. How you get that? All right. You bounce off my screen, you know, Medulus. You bounce off my screen, you know, brother Ranel. All right. Stop your share. You're not seeing the slide anymore. You seeing the picture of brother Ranel? Send it to my email, brother Ranel. All right. I need to. All right. It seems like you bounce off my slide, you know. We have to limit the screen sharing. All right, brother Ronald, stop sharing your screen now with us, yeah? So I can get back my screen, because I'm not seeing my screen. Right?
Oh, okay.
All right, there you go. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
Yes, brother Nelson. Yes, sir, I will. I will do it right now. All right, thank you. Just let him know you leave it, you know? Thanks, my brother. Brothers, give me 1 minute, all right? I'll close it. All right. All right. So, uh, so the major emphasis of the gospel accounts were on the saving events. All right. How humanity is saved. That is very, very important. Now, who wrote the Gospels? Who wrote the Gospel accounts? Who wrote Matthew? Anybody? Unmute your microphone and answer. Who wrote the Gospel account of Matthew?
The person.
Right? We look at that. Matthew, think about Mark, Luke, and also John. Right? Now, watch this right here now. The titles of these Gospel accounts are based on statements by early Christian authors, right, from the 2nd century and beyond. So the authorship often a matter of considerable scholarly debate. A lot of persons debate who really wrote the accounts, right? But really, it's of little relevance to us today. It don't matter. The truth of it all is that we know that it is divine inspiration.
Yes, sir.
Right? It is divine inspiration.
I'm wondering if it's John the Baptist that wrote thing there. Because isn't John the one paving the way for Jesus Christ in Matthew?
Well, it's recorded in Matthew, but the Apostle Matthew really wrote the book of Matthew. Right? And the John that wrote John is the Apostle John. Now we're going to study more about that when we get to John, because many have confused the author for John to be John the Baptizer. But you have John the Baptizer, you have John the Apostle. John the Apostle did the writing. Right? John the Apostle was one. But we'll get more to that. So this is just an overview. When we're going to dive into Matthew next time, I will start doing a little study on that. Right? Touch the highlights and we can move on. So we'll get around to that, but consider that as well. Now, how are the gospel accounts composed? How they put them together? I mean, when you look at all the information, how is it that they are composed? So they are composed in 4 stages, really. The words and deeds of Jesus are mentioned in the gospel accounts. Oral tradition is highlighted as well in them. Written sources are mentioned. For example, they make reference back to Old Testament passages. So we see that coming out in them already. And we see the 4 accounts, 4 different reports from 4 different sources. So we want to know that as well. So the composition really is in 4 stages. Word, oral, with oral tradition being mentioned. The written sources are there. And of course, the 4 gospel accounts. We'll talk more about that. So in 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8, the gospel as preached by Paul is this: death, burial, resurrection, and the post-resurrection appearances. Somebody read for me 1 Corinthians chapter 15 from verses 3-8. 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. Find that for me in the time. All right. 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8.
1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 3-8.
Yeah.
Said, for I deliver to you first of all that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the scripture, and that he was buried, and that he rose on the 3rd day according to the scripture, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12. After that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain to the present, but some have fallen asleep. After that, he was seen by James, then by all the apostles. Then last of all, he was seen by me also, as by one born out of due time.
All right. So we observe here that as Paul preached it, the death, burial, resurrection, and the post-resurrection appearances. Notice it says he was seen by this person, seen by that person. So really, when we consider the gospel accounts, it is divided in this section in some sense. Death, burial, resurrection, and the post-resurrection appearances. So that's how Paul delivered it, and that's how we know it today. All right, so which gospel was first? No. To determine which gospel was first, we have to check the date that they were written, not necessarily how they are placed in the Bible. Because you may see Matthew first, however, Matthew may not have been the first written gospel account, but we will look at that further. Most people say Mark usually dated AD 70 or later. Matthew and Luke are supposedly, some have said that Matthew and Luke probably used the information from Mark's account as basis for the later gospel accounts in AD 70 to 100. Now the dates are highly debatable. Always remember that. So some good reasons exist to believe all may have been written much earlier. Not everybody agree that Mark was the first written gospel account. Right? So in other words, what the slide is saying is this. Some people believe that Mark was written first, then Matthew and Luke copied from Mark and wrote their account. But the truth is, there's no real evidence for that. Right? But some have said that Mark was first, then Matthew and Luke look at what Mark wrote, take out bits and pieces of the information and wrote their own gospel account. But that's not necessarily true. And we look at that theory later on in the lesson. We'll soon take a break. So you may come across this term from time to time, the synoptic gospels. The synoptic gospels. Now, whenever you hear the term synoptic gospels, it usually refers to Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Not all four. Not all four. When we hear synoptic gospels, it's usually referring to Matthew, Mark. Syn, S-Y-N, pretty much means together. Optic means to see. When we put the word together, it comes in the idea, brings about the idea of to see alike or to see things together. We see eye to eye, as persons use that term. We see things eye to eye. That's the whole idea of synoptic. Synoptic brings about the idea of similar. All right. So if ever I should ask again, what is the meaning of synoptic? Or what are considered as the synoptic gospels? Or what is it that people consider to be the synoptic gospels? The synoptic gospels are usually Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And the meaning of synoptic is to see alike, or to see eye to eye, or to have something that is similar. Let's move on. So, they're called this way. They're usually called synoptic gospels because of the similarity and the large amount of material that is common to all three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John, in and of itself, for some people or most people, John tends to stand in his own lane. John tends to just be in his own category in the eyes of some people because of how John is written and how John portrays Christ. So when we think about synoptic gospels, it's usually what again? What we say, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And of course, a large similarity is found within those three gospel accounts. Now, Mark has 661 verses. 606 repeated almost verbatim, word for word in Matthew. You understand what I'm saying? Let me repeat that. Mark has 661 verses. However, when we look in Matthew, about 606 of those verses are almost repeated, word for word, in the gospel account of Matthew. When we look over in Luke, 380 of those verses found in Mark are repeated in the gospel account of Luke. You see why most folks say that probably Mark was written first, and the others, Matthew and Luke, took information from Mark to make up their gospel account. No, that is just theory that exists in our world. We're not going in the pulpit to preach that. But that's just the understanding of some folks out there. And we're sharing it just the same. That is why many have drawn the conclusion that these are considered the synoptic gospels, because they are similar in characteristics. All right? Any questions or comments? If you have any, just raise your hand on your device.
So how many verses are there in the Gospel of Matthew? Can you please repeat that again for me?
All right, it's on the slide. If you're able to see the slide, are you seeing the slide, everybody?
No, I'm not seeing the slide.
Oh, all this time I thought, oh no, sorry about that, man.
Yeah, because I'm actually looking through the library and I don't see any gospel. So
yeah, you don't see it. Yeah, no, nothing is in the library for that really. But again, you can just probably draw on whatever your resource you may have about that, right? Yeah.
So I think you'd better send these pictures to my email so that I can view all of these information.
Definitely. Brother Enrico, just give me a little reminder here.
Yeah.
The others know that I may forget at times to send them. Just remind me to send the syllabus and the notes, all right?
Okay.
But you see the notes now, correct?
Yes, sir.
You see the screen?
Yes, sir, I'm seeing it.
All right. We kind of freeze a while ago. The internet here not so wonderful, you know. All right. Mark has 661 verses. It is said that 606 of those verses are repeated almost word for word in the Gospel of Matthew. 380 of the verses in Mark are also almost repeated word for word in the Gospel of Luke. So that's something just to think about, to ponder on. We're not going to allow it to weaken our faith. But this is what many have said over the years, okay? Let's move on. The problem with the synoptic idea now is this. Here's a question. Why are the three so much alike, but yet not identical? That's a problem we have with the synoptic idea. Why is it that the three are so much alike, but yet not identical? They're different in account, right? The usual explanation is this. Some try to say that it's a documentary hypothesis, where it assumes writers were using each other's written material. So documentary hypothesis pretty much is where I take my information from what others have written. Right? I draw my conclusion from what Brother Enrico has written. I draw my conclusion from what Brother Ronell has written, and I put them together. That is the idea of the documentary hypothesis. However, though the three are similar in writing or in thought, they're still not identical. So that's a problem with the synoptic idea. What does synoptic mean again? What is the meaning of synoptic?
Meaning that they similar, meaning that they see eye to eye.
Yeah, that the documents are similar. They have similar features or they're seeing things eye to eye. All right. Brother Ronald, you were answering?
Yeah, synoptic means, the documents are similar and characteristic. So
Yes.
they are common.
Right. That's the idea of it. But as we said, there are some problems with synoptic, with the idea of people calling it a synoptic gospel. Right? Because they're alike, but they're not identical. Right? So we have to think about some other things with that. Now, I want you all to find these passages for me. All of you. Well, tell you what. Brother Enrico, find the Matthew 8 passage on the screen for me. And Brother Ronell, I want you to find the Mark chapter 4 passage that is on the screen. If you're able to see it, let me know. Or not, let me know. So Brother Enrico will read for us shortly. Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27. Brother Ronell will be reading Mark chapter 4, verses 36 to 41. Everybody have that?
Okay.
All right. Brother Enrico will read his first. Go ahead, Brother Enrico. Matthew 8, 23 to 27.
Yeah, Matthew 8, 23 to 27. Said, now when he got into a boat, his disciples followed him. And suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered with the waves. But he was asleep. Then his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we are perishing. But he said to them, why are you fearful, O you of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. So the men marveled, saying, who can this be, that even the winds and the sea obey him? 2 demon-possessed men healed.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Mark chapter 4 now, Brother Ronell, 36 to 41. What I want you to do, just mark both passages. Just put your finger right there, mark them so that you can look for similarities. So Matthew 8 was read by Brother Enrico. Brother Ronell will now read Mark 4, 36 to 41. Go ahead, Brother Ronell. Mark 4.
Okay. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, Quiet, be still. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm.
Right.
He said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him.
Nice. Well done. Are we seeing any similarities, brothers, in the both passages? Lots of similarities. But we'll do that as a little writing assignment, Charlie. That's fine. Both similarities are in both of them. Now, here's another concept that is out there. We soon take a short break. We're going to end probably around 12 o'clock. Here's another idea that's out there. There's something called the four-source theory. The four-source theory. What they say is this. What some people say is this. Mark was first written. That's what some people say. This is not the gospel. the sense that this is not written in the Word of God. But many have said Mark was first written, and it was Mark's written account was used as a source by both Matthew and Luke. That is what people are saying. Don't go in a Bible class and say this is how it is. This is what people are saying. Some have said Mark was first written, then Matthew and Luke took a little bit from Mark and make up theirs. There is also this other theory that some people have running in their mind. A theory that is called a Q, right? Q, or source. What is it? It's a hypothetical saying that Matthew and Mark, or Matthew and Luke, used Mark as the source. So the Q theory is where people say Mark was written first, and Matthew and Luke use Mark as the source. That's the Q theory. The M theory is this idea. M, source of information particular to Matthew. So the M theory is this, that there information in Matthew that is peculiar to what Mark wrote. The L theory is this, that information in Luke was peculiar to what is written in Mark. But all of it doesn't make sense to me, and it's a waste of time. However, this is what people have running in the world. Some talk about the Q theory, where the Q theory is where people are saying Mark was the source, the primary source of the gospel accounts. So in other words, they're saying Mark wrote that account first. Then Matthew and Luke come and take a little bit from it and make up theirs. As far as I know, I don't need to know about that. Doesn't make sense to me. However, that is what is running in the world today, in the theological world. They will probably say to you, do you believe in the Q theory? Do you believe that Mark was written first and then Matthew and Luke copied from Mark? But you don't have to debate all that. Sometimes it's a waste of time. Here it goes now. Gospel of Mark, Gospel of Matthew. This is how they calculate the Gospel of Matthew. Mark plus Q plus M. Mark plus the source plus M, right? Gospel of Luke, this is how they calculate it. Mark plus Q plus Luke. Anyways, that is just for note taking. So at one time, this theory was almost unquestioned. But no longer. People realize that this don't make sense anymore. All this thing about the copy from one another, right? Don't make sense anymore. However, here are some problems we have with the four source theory. Major problems. Why do Matthew and Luke omit portions of Mark? If people are saying that Matthew and Luke, they're just a repeat of what's written in Mark, then why is it that there are some portions of Mark that is omitted from Matthew and Luke? It don't make sense. Why do Matthew and Luke sometimes have in common the same material which does not come from Mark? Right? So for someone to say that Matthew and Luke copied, just identically copied from Mark, that is a misunderstanding, I believe. Right? And we can also think about the hypothetical nature of Q. The Q idea, as we say. In German, that word is used, it means source, or a hypothetical. Just a hypothetical. So in other words, what they say is that but it does not at the end of the day. It does not add up at the end of the day. Because if Q is hypothetical,